Sportsman's Adventures is presented by Yamaha.
There's really only one thing that separates the winners from the losers in tournament fishing. It's
Go, baby, that's what I'm talking about.
only a mama could love that mouth. Bringing home the snappers. That's what Florida is famous for. Hey, welcome to Sportsman's Adventures, and this week we're talking about being prepared if you're gonna be fishing in any of the Florida Keys tournaments. Now, one of the things that I think is very critical is that you gotta check your equipment a couple weeks out. Make sure that all the things on the boat are in working order. Your pumps, the motor, prop, you name it, you gotta check it. When it comes to rods and reels, this is the time that I'm gonna take all the old line off and put fresh line so that I'm ready to go. Now, the week of the tournament, what's very important is to understand and see where the fish are living and where they're migrating through. Fish move often, so guess what? My friend John Cooper joined me to help me do some pre-fishing so that I can be ready for the Herman Lucerne. Look at that. Oh my God, it's a big crazy fish up here in the shallow water. I got these little wire hooks on this Balsa Extreme Rapala. I got like no drag, and he's leaving. How's your polling skills, Cooper?
I'm a fast learner.
Oh no, I've been down that road before, circles.
Come on.
Oh, that's a nice fish. Probably a 25 or 30 pound fish.
Super aggressive.
Yeah. Well, that's the cool part about baby tarpon, you know? They're a little forgiving. So, you know, Johnny, I gotta tell you, I appreciate you coming down here. I'm pre-fishing for the Herman Lucerne, which is a 7-species tournament in Isla Mirada developed to raise money for the Everglades. So the 7 species, it's the hardest tournament that I have ever participated in. I've never won it. And it's tarpon, bonefish, snook, redfish, trout, mangrove snapper, black drum, and a bass. So even though that's 8 species, it's either or on the black drum or the bass. So as you know, tournament fishing is all about preparation, whether you're offshore or inshore. And you know, you've been fishing tournaments for years. So what do you guys do offshore that is different than what we might do inshore?
Well, I'm gradually learning here that there's a lot of parallels in the preparation. Scouting is huge in the backcountry, and we scout offshore too. We probably spend a little more time gathering the live bait, penning them up, but this is a little overwhelmingly challenging to me. When you have 7 species, offshore, we're targeting 1.
Exactly.
And every one of these kind of has its own environment, its own tide probably preference that I know nothing about. But
and you know, one of the things I didn't explain to you when we were in the car coming down, there's different points for different tackle categories. So here's a good example. This tarpon is worth on bait, whatever he is, if he's 35 inches, he's worth 35 points. But if I catch him on an artificial, what'll happen is then it is actually 1.25 inches. So we take the multiple. Let me go up over your head. We go up, you know what I mean? So if this fish is caught on this Rapala, I get the total inches times a multiple of 1.25. If he's caught on fly, it's a multiple of 1.5 inches. See, so we can have the same fish, but catching them on different tackle because of the level of difficulty gives you more points. That's kind of cool.
There's just a lot. I mean, it's an overwhelming strategy. You can only be in one place first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And then you got to know, you know, where you're going from there and the tides.
And we're burning snook time early morning trying to catch the tarpon. So if we were in the tournament, as soon as we were to land this fish and take the picture documenting him on an official measuring device with a poker chip, a colored poker chip per day or for the day, then we'd immediately leave here, which is what we'll do this morning, and we'll go try to catch a snook while it's still early. That's the strategy there. All right, Johnny, you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. When was the last time you grabbed one of those, John Cooper?
Then I don't know that I ever have, to be honest with you.
Oh, you mean I get to experience yours first?
A lot of hooks real close to the part you're grabbing.
That's why you'll get hands like these. Hold on to them tight. What you grabbing? That's it. Hold them tight. Perfect. Coopanada.
How cool is that?
That is so cool. Look at that little lure. Look at that little bitty lure on that big fish. It just shows elephants eat peanuts.
Look how he blends in. His back is the same color as the grass.
So that fish is probably, to the tail, is probably pushing 32, 33 inches. So we would multiply him times 1.25, and that would be my total inches. I would be good with that because there's a max on the tarpon and the snook.
You'd
So
be
you
blazing to the next spot at this
Yeah,
point.
we're going to be blazing off to the snooks.
Sportsman's Adventures is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Rapala. Catch the latest at Rapala.com. Costa Sunglasses. See what's out there. Okuma. There's no stopping Okuma. And StarTron. Cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems.
When you're moving a big offshore boat, it's all about thrust and trust. For thrust, nothing compares to the Yamaha purpose-built 5.3-liter V8 Power Pioneer. And for trust, Yamaha's new F350C model becomes the only outboard in its horsepower class to feature a 5-year limited warranty. Never settle for less than complete confidence and control in the open water. That's Yamaha V8 Power. Get the best and forget the rest.
It's one of the most ancient forms of hide and seek known to man. And nobody knows how to play the fishing game better than the backcountry guides and offshore captains of the Florida Keys and Key West. Ready or not, here we come.
Thanks for watching Sportsman's Adventures. You can catch all the happenings, contests, and appearances by visiting us at sportsmansadventures.com. There you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, but best of all, you never have to miss a show because you can find full episodes of Sportsman's Adventures along with tips, techniques, bonus clips, and even some bloopers. Also, if there's a product that we use during the show that you'd like more information on, you can find links to our sponsors at the bottom of our homepage. Hey, saltwater anglers, you ready to earn some serious bragging rights and maybe even a chance to win some great prizes from t-shirts to fishing gear? Come catch a Florida memory with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission by participating in any of the 3 exciting saltwater angling recognition programs. See if you can catch all 71 different species by participating in the Saltwater Fish Life List. Have a big catch that isn't quite a record? Submit it to the Saltwater Reel Big Fish program. And finally, check out all 9 categories of Saltwater Grand Slams challenging anglers to catch 3 species in a 24-hour period. Now, saltwater angling recognition programs are not only fun, but they encourage anglers to target a diversity of species, and they decrease the fishing pressure on any given species at the same time. They also expand fishing experiences for seasoned anglers, cultivating an interest in saltwater fishing and strengthening the marine fisheries conservation ethics. Now learn more about these programs and sign up today at catchafloridamemory.com. There's plenty of times when you're in a tournament that you certainly can't count on what the weather's going to do. Now in tournaments where you're sight fishing, whether you're fishing with a fly rod or it's light tackle that you're using, sight fishing is certainly only as good as the clear skies that you have. On days when it's raining and thunderstorming, it makes sight fishing very difficult, and I can certainly understand in the Sugarloaf Showdown how hard it is on Captain Zach with that overcast gray and all those quick, short shots, and trying to accomplish that with a fly rod. Right there, cast, left, right here.
This is the second year I've fished this tournament. This is a tournament to raise money for the Lower Keys Guide Association, as well as the Guides Trust Foundation, which is a foundation that's set up for us for the Florida Keys fishing guides. So if we get hurt or get sick and we can't, keep up our bills and feed our family and that kind of thing, they help us out to keep us afloat, and it's a great organization.
It's a jack. That's first generation power pole right there, buddy. I wouldn't have a boat without this thing. Come on, there should be some bonefish right here, son. Needlefish. Long cast at 12.
Not only that, it's to raise awareness for the barracuda. The barracuda has been on the decline for the past 4 or 5 years, and we're really trying to get the word out there and show people what a great game fish they are. Whether it be on a spinning rod or whether it be on a fly. Starting now throughout the winter, up in till March or April, we will see good numbers of barracuda moving in off the Gulf and off the ocean on the Atlantic side, where they move up into these shallow places, and it's great sight fishing.
Sportsman's Adventures is brought to you by Power Pole, Swift, Silent, Secure, Contender Boats, Performance through Innovation, VMC, your expert in hooks, Williamson Lures, for the Pelagic Playground, FWC, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, Suffix, the world's most hardcore fishing line, and Humminbird, simply, clearly better.
Hey, how do you like your contender? How do I like my contender? What's not to like?
Dude, I just saw a contender, and man, I gotta give me one.
When you're paid to put fish in the boat, you don't mess around with the thing that puts fish in the boat. Always use the best line.
early days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore.
Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
Today's Coast to Cool site brings us to Indian Key in the Florida Keys. In the early 1800s, wrecking and salvaging cargo from shipwrecks was extremely lucrative, and Indian Key began its history with a general store to serve their wreckers, and eventually more and more people began to settle on the island. One of the more notorious dudes that settled here was Jacob Houseman. He moved in here in 1830. He soon became the community leader, and with a large amount of investment, he also was the chief landlord. Houseman successfully campaigned to station a customs inspector, built a post office, and split from Monroe County to become the first county seat of Dade County. As the Second Seminole War began, most of the Keys were abandoned, but the inhabitants of Indian Key had their own small militia, and they stayed to protect the property. In the early morning of August 7, 1840, the Indians snuck onto the island. They looted and burned down most of the buildings, and in the end, most of the residents escaped, but 13 were killed. Today, Indian Key is a state park, and even though only the foundations remain, it allows visitors to get a glimpse in the Florida Keys history, and that's why Indian Key is today's Coast to Cool site. So I think, Johnny, now you got a general idea when we pre-fish for these inshore tournaments. It's not only bait driven, it's artificially driven, but the key is knowing where the fish are. Then you can decide, depending on the fish's attitude, as to what you're going to attack the situation with. But, you know, more importantly, on offshore, I know you have a checklist of things that you do. Why don't you tell me how they're the same as what we did today, or maybe even how they're different?
There's a lot of similarities. The thing that is probably the most work, or certainly the most time consuming, is finding the live bait, catching them, gathering them, transporting them wherever you're going to keep them. Once you're keeping them there, you have to season them, which could take a week, 10 days, get them, start feeding them, getting them eating, and then depending on where the event is, you got to move them again. So that is the most time consuming. And then of course there's tackle and the boat, and oh, by the way, you need to fish. You know that now in today's we have 6 or 8 person teams, men and women, and you can't be in sync enough.
There's also the day before checking our kites. How do you guys go about that? What do you look for in all of that?
Well, a lot of times, for sure in the beginning of the season, then after maybe a couple, 3 weeks, we'll rinse them all, give them a little bath with soap, and then dry them all, get all the salt residue off so they fly pure and true, and then we'll take them out and we'll fly them and see if there's one that favors it going to the right or the left, and then we'll label it.
Right.
Okay, this is a natural right, or a natural left, or it's just right. That way it saves time on game day. It's already labeled, said, okay, hey, I need a natural right. You know, makes it a little more efficient that way.
Do we change the lines on all the rods and reels? Because on the C1 team, you got 10 spinners, Azor 80s, which they hold a lot of 20-pound Suffolks. And then we also have our conventionals, the Andros with the Machaira rods, and they hold 800 yards of high-vis 20. So,
I mean, we change them almost every event, unless maybe in the last event there wasn't a lot of spinning rods used. They weren't tailing. It was strictly kite fishing, and they sat kind of dormant. We feel pretty good about the line not being jeopardized.
Right.
We'll probably just keep riding with it. But if we feel like we've got a cross, or maybe the line got in danger or jeopardized at some point, we'll mark the rod however you want to mark it, with a rubber band or whatever, and that for sure gets changed.
Certainly, it's a huge difference fishing an inshore tournament for a bronze trophy or a painting versus when we fish in the professional sailfish series. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, for first place and second place.
Yep.
And that's why it's so really important to be prepared. But I want you to know, I don't know how you feel, but my level of intensity doesn't change whether it's a picture or whether it's, you know, $100,000 first prize. So
Still competing.
So what kind of advice would you give a guy who thinks he wants to tournament fish?
In the offshore arena?
Yeah, sure.
I'd say, you know, preparation is key. Having all your equipment and the best bait. Right now, there's just not hardly any secrets. So, other than good old-fashioned luck, you better have all your, you know, ducks in a row. And I would probably choose to ride on one of them. If you can get a ride on one of the, you know, established teams right now, that would be priceless.
Yeah, and put together a team of guys that you're serious, but you enjoy being in one another's company, because gosh knows when something goes bad, you don't want to have all that tension.
Yep, and you're confined into a 30 or 40 foot space.
And it does go bad tournament fishing.
It can happen.
But when it goes good, there's nothing sweeter.
Sportsman's Adventures is brought to you by Ameritrail, custom trailer manufacturers. Maverick Boat Group, makers of premium boat brands Maverick, Hughes, and Pathfinder. Soft Science, supreme comfort footwear. The American Fishing Tackle Company, precision tackle and performance clothing since 1958. And the Florida Keys and Key West, come as you are.
It's one of the most ancient forms of hide and seek known to man. And nobody knows how to play the fishing game better than the backcountry guides and offshore captains of the Florida Keys and Key West. Ready or not, here we come.
Hey guys, don't forget, if you're thinking about going fishing this weekend, you want to make sure you check out the weather, check your boat, and check your gear. But most importantly, before you go fishing, don't forget to check out the Chevy Florida Insider Fisher Reports. We'll have Dave at the workbench talking about rigs and techniques, as well as new products, and Bree and all the captains giving you the hot spots from each one of their regions. Remember, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, starting April 6th on Fox Sports Sun. Certainly, tournament fishing in the Florida Keys happens on both sides of US 1. Whether you're fishing the backcountry for inshore fish, or you're fishing offshore for dolphin or sailfish. But I want to tell you the high-price sailfish tournaments that are going on throughout the Florida Keys is amazing. And it brings the best of all the teams. So preparation is what it's all about. But more importantly, on game day, on your day of the tournament, you gotta be ready so that you can capitalize on every single opportunity. That's what we try to do on the C1, and here's some video to prove it.
Yes, sir. Got a man in rig. What's on? A double.
You want to fire something out? You got confirmation on these fish yet?
No, I got nothing.
So many times these sailfish, they travel in packs, and the most important part of fishing in a sailfish tournament is to make sure that you have all your lines in the water. One of your guys gets hooked up, more often than not, you can get a chance at multiples. So while your buddy's off fighting his fish and he's jumping and creating all types of chaos, you gotta stay focused on your kite baits to make sure they're in the right presentation, because more often than not, it'll turn into 2, 3, or even sometimes a quad.
Yellow 100, rig. Right here.
Roger, right here, too. There's a leader. Just gotta tip it. You got any video? Brenda?
So the way the release works is when the leader comes up, an angler has to reach out and touch the leader below the double line. That constitutes a catch. But all of these tournaments want verification having the fish, it's called fish ID, on the video. So you have to have fish ID, you have to have your mate grabbing the leader, you have to have that mate cutting the leader, showing that you've been disconnected from the fish. And then more importantly, the tournament is going to give you a confirmation number as to what fish it was caught in the tournament. And then they're going to give you a card that is color coded. And that all has to be put on a video in consecutive order. So it's really important to keep the integrity of the tournament and making sure that everybody's playing under the honest rule books. So I hope that you have clarity in regards to how these tournaments work, what you need to do to be ready for them, and more importantly, where they're being held, which is in the Florida Keys, one of the fishing capitals of the world.
Keep up with the latest Sportsman's Adventures news and events by logging into our website at sportsmansadventures.com and following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Coming up next week on Sportsman's Adventures with Captain Rick Murphy.
So we're up here in North Florida. I'm meeting my good friends from Bass Assassin. I'm gonna be doing some big bass today. And you know what? It's top secret. I can't even tell you where we're going.